This is Mission Qualfon, a monthly podcast that takes you inside the workings of our company, but not just the ins and outs of business. We look at the ideas and insights that make Qualphone truly unique. As a company, we are committed to being the best and making each person's life better. Join us as we get to know and learn from people from across the organization. What's their story? What have they learned? And how do they live out Qualphone's mission? Welcome to Mission Qualfon.
Hello and welcome to Mission Qualfon. My name's Jeremy Lennon and I'm here with my partner Marisol Sanchez. Marisol, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to this debut episode of the podcast. Why are we here, Marisol? What's the purpose of this podcast?
Jeremy, that's a great question. Who starts a podcast about a BPO? You and I do, Jeremy. You and I do. Qualphone is a very unique company. It's exceptionally unique, I would say. And it begs to have a podcast for it because there's so many things to share, not only with our employees, but future employees, our current clients, future clients. It's a great company, and there's many reasons it's great. And a platform like podcasting, I think, can only highlight all the uniqueness that we have to offer. And I think it starts out, what makes Qualphone so unique, it starts out with our mission, which certainly you can tell us more about.
Well, I think, and you've made this point often, is that every company, you and I have worked for lots of companies, both of us have, every company has a mission. But here at Qualphone, our mission is real. I mean, we really try and live it to the extent that we have a mission department. We've got about 100 employees that work full-time in the mission department. Their job is to help execute this mission. We have a chief mission officer, so a C-level executive, Roberto Sanchez Mijarata, whose job is to make sure we are executing on that mission. And that's unique.
Jeremy, you and I know it, but what is the mission? What's the mission phrase?
Well, the short, succinct mission is be the best and make each person's life better.
Which to our audience, brand new, if you don't work for the company, you might be like, what? I invite you to stay with us because those lofty words, they are lived and breathed in this company. And I know I feel grateful to be a part of it. And Jeremy, you feel grateful to be a part of it. And we want to share that with everyone.
And we have a great place to start today on our debut episode. Today, we'll be talking with our CEO, Mike Morrow, about mentorship. I'm just going to throw this right out there. Sometimes it can be intimidating to a lot of folks when they're talking with the CEO of their company, right? And I know, Marisol, you have a lot of experience working with Mike, so I hope you don't mind. I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit. And before we bring Mike into the conversation, I'm going to ask you to maybe share a little bit of your history working with Mike.
Are you intimidated right now, Jeremy?
I'm not yet. Not yet.
That's a word I've heard used to describe him over the last 20 years, that he is intimidating. But I will say it didn't matter what his title was. That energy, that vibe that he gives, it's always been there, regardless of his title. And I think intimidation is the wrong word. I would just reframe it as he just has this big, physically, I'm 5'4", so I don't know how tall he is, but he's over 6 feet tall. He has a big presence, but that presence is much more than physical. It's also just, he is, he commands a room. He commands a meeting. He's a big energy kind of guy. And I understand people have been intimidated by him, but after 20 some years of working with him, I can honestly say he doesn't intend to intimidate anyone. That's just his natural personality. Hopefully he won't get mad at me saying that.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And Mike, we're gonna bring you in and let you share your side of the story here. I know that you and Marisol have worked together often. So if you don't mind, I might be asking Marisol some questions throughout this also.
Can I put a little meat on our theme for this podcast, though?
Sure,
because we do have Mike as our CEO, and I'll introduce him in a second. But
okay.
We originally said we wanted to talk to him about Six Sigma, but you did a QML for our employees this month on mentorship. There was a question on the town hall that was asked of our executive team about mentorship. I just did a speech recently about mentorship. So it just felt like I was being pushed to do a podcast with Mike Morrow on mentorship, because I do consider him my mentor for over 20 years. And like you've mentioned, I have worked for him on and off for a long time. So with that, I would like to introduce our CEO, Mike Morrow. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And well, I hope I'm not. You're intimidating me by making me record this. So, but I'm happy to do it. I appreciate you inviting me, and I'm very glad to be here.
Would you say that that's accurate, though, that I feel that you have driven companies, or managed companies, I should say. I feel not the exact same way. Obviously, technologies have advanced and so on, but you've always had the same intention, which is to come in, assess, create an action plan, and find a solution. That's my interpretation. That's my description of the Mike Morrow philosophy.
I think so, probably. Maybe there's a couple things pertinent to that. One is that I want to get things done. I don't want things to be sitting around on the table and, you know, there's 100 things to do. If I get 10 of them done, now I only have 90. And every day I get 10 new ones. If I don't take care of 10 today, tomorrow I'm going to have 110, and the next day 120, and eventually I'm just overwhelmed. I just like to move fast, and that's one of the tenets we have, is move fast at Qualphone. And the other is, I guess, I like to win. And to me, fixing something, making it better, that's kind of a win. And where that comes from is I grew up in a family with 5 boys, and we were all very, very close in age. And it was a nonstop competition. So it was a competition to who could eat dinner the fastest, hit the baseball the furthest, you name it, you know, hold their breath the longest. If I was, you know, playing the averages, I'd win 1 out of 5 times. So to me, success is getting something. You want to get something done, and you get it done.
Mm-hmm. I would just add to that this is my description of you. This is how I feel. I feel like you have an engineer's brain, which you just want to fix things too. Like if you see a problem, you look for a solution, period. Like it wasn't much more complicated than that.
Well, the funny thing is my dad was an engineer, and that's the way he thought, and it drove all of us crazy. We all said, we'll never be like that.
And we kind of see that in the focus that we've had on continuous improvement over the last 3 years, right? That makes sense, Marisol, that in your mind, you kind of view Mike as an engineer because it's about improving processes. So we've seen that. I have a question, and Marisol talked about mentorship, and this seems to have been, at least on my radar, for the last several months. There have been a number of projects that we've worked on related to that. And so I would love, Mike, for you to share what you think makes a good mentor. What makes somebody a good or great mentor?
Yep, sure. And there's actually 2 parts to that equation, right? There's the mentor and the person being mentored. Mm-hmm. And so I think that a good mentor is someone who has experiences that you don't have, right? It would be like having a guide for a very long journey that you're looking forward to, but you've never experienced it. Your mentor has made that journey before and has that experience, and they're willing to share it with you. I think a good mentor cares about your success in your current role, and they care about your success in your future roles, and they also care about not only your work life, but your personal life as well. And the other side of the equation, what a lot of people refer to as a mentee, I actually like the word protege. I'd rather be a protege than a mentee.
Yes.
Hermie and I just said that yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's someone who's humble enough to realize they don't know it all, someone who wants to learn, and they're also someone who appreciates the time being given them by their mentor and respects that time given by the mentor. And on the mentor side, again, it's someone who's willing to invest the time. It takes time, it takes effort, and it's over a long period of time. It's not for a month or 2 months. It's a real mentor. I see that as a coach for life.
As you look back over your career, Mike, who were some of your mentors?
Well, this may surprise you, but to be honest with you, I could not point to an individual and say, according to that definition I just gave you, this was or is my mentor. I've had a lot of people that have influenced me. I've received a lot of good advice from both people I've known, people I've met, books I've read, but I honestly really can't point to a certain person and say, that person has been a long-term coach for me. And I think I'm in the majority, meaning most people don't have the benefit of having a true mentor. I don't know what the number is, maybe 5% or less have ever had a true mentor. I don't think it's a big number. I suspect it's relatively low.
Well, I could speak to what makes a good mentor.
Pardon me?
I said I can speak to what makes a good mentor.
Okay, let's hear it.
I can one-up Mike Morrow.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm making a joke about Mike being my mentor. I was very fortunate. I first met him, I was 23 years old. I had absolutely no self-confidence, did not look people in the eye, and would apologize for my existence. That's just to give you a picture of what, I feel like I was when I first met him. And a good mentor, a lifelong mentor, it's sort of like a seed that gets planted in your head. And your life becomes like a tree, and then there's branches, and you can look back and connect that all to the seed. And that's what Mike has been in my life. My children have heard me talk about him since they were born. There's just so much that everything I look at now, 23 years later, I can look back and make a direct connection to some lesson that he's taught me over the years. And it wasn't like our mentorship relationship was like he would sit down and mentor me. It really was observational. It really was just experiencing working for him throughout the years. We started out when I first met him, it was like a medium-sized BPO. Then we went to smaller BPOs, then large BPOs, and internet startups, acquisitions, all these areas of the business that I got to experience. I have to say behind him, not next to him, but that it was like a master class in BPO mentorship that I was just.
And sorry to interrupt. What I'm hearing is it wasn't structured, right? It wasn't, you've been assigned to Mike Morrow, he's your mentor, right? It was an organic and natural process is what I'm hearing.
I think Roberto would say it was a blessing.
Okay, very good.
It's kind of how I would describe it. It was just, for me, it was just luck. I just was lucky enough to cross paths with him.
And yet, Mike,
if this was a video conference, you'd see me turning red, right?
Well, Mike,
we don't do this. Mike and I don't do this. This is uncomfortable for both of us.
That's all right. I'm enjoying the level of uncomfort that you're both experiencing this. I do want to ask Mike this, though, because he's mentioned that, and I agree. I think the majority of us cannot look back and say, these were my mentors, right? And yet Mike has been urging us, I don't want to say pushing us, but maybe I'll say pushing us. Mike has really been emphasizing this idea of mentorship for a long time now. And so, Mike, give us your thought behind that. Why is this something that's so important to you now that we want to be emphasizing this idea of, and actually starting to put some structure around this idea of mentorship?
Well, a good question. I guess the way I would answer it is, by the way, what Marisol was just talking about, she had some of the qualities that make a good protege, right? Mm-hmm. She was humble enough to realize she didn't know everything. And she was someone who wanted to learn, and she appreciated, the learnings that she received. So why do I care about mentors? So as I mentioned, I can't point to one individual who I could name as being my mentor. And by the way, I don't think people, if you really think about the real meaning of a mentor, no one has 3 or 4 mentors, right? It's 1 if you're lucky. If you're doubly blessed, it's 2. But it's a life coach. So I have had the delight of being a mentor for a very small number of people. It's not dozens, it's less than one hand that I have had relationships with for 10, 20, 30 years. And I've seen them from the time they first entered business, growing up, having families, working their way up to important positions within their organizations. And it's just been really fun on my part. So A is, I think, for back to your question about Qualphone, is I'd like a bunch of other people to have that fantastic experience of being a mentor and helping someone else in their current role in their career, someone who has a lot of experience that a young person can learn from. Number 2 is that I think people that have great mentors, if I had a great mentor, maybe I would have not made some of the mistakes I'd made along the way. Maybe I would have done things better, had more of those things I like called wins. I don't know. I look at the people I would call my proteges and kind of wish, well, it would have been nice if I had that experience at some point in the past. Who doesn't want someone who they can look up to and respect and ask advice and know that person cares about their life and helps them succeed and helps them solve problems they might not have been able to solve? I would think pretty much everyone.
Can I
You
jump
go
in?
back to our mission, right? Make each person's life better. Having a mentor seems to me like it would make everyone who has a mentor has a better life.
Agreed.
So let me just jump in because, I was talking about Mike being like a seed for me. So I've, taken that on, and I've mentored girls. I work with a group of girls in high school now going into college. And what I've learned, why I think mentorship is important, is because it's a connection. At the end of the day, I think mentors, what makes a good mentor is you're a teacher and you're kind of like a consistent teacher. And you can have more than one mentor, but, I think we want that for our employees at Qualphone, is to possibly, hopefully, we don't want to force it or say that, everyone is going to have a mentor or find the perfect match. But how great would it be if they did? How great would it be if we were able to match up people who see the best in you, who reveal your weaknesses, who force you to evolve, grow up? I think that would be another wonderful addition to what we already experience at Qualphone.
For sure.
Here's one of the ways I would measure if we had real mentors. So, my hope is that people, enjoy working at Qualphone and they look forward to coming and being part of the organization every day. But the reality is some people will move on. There will be opportunities, maybe that it would take years to get to at Qualphone, but some other organization has that opportunity today. So if I'm a person at Qualphone and I have a mentor at Qualphone and I leave Qualphone, that person should continue to be my mentor. Just because I'm not part of the organization anymore doesn't mean I shouldn't continue with that relationship, having that person as a mentor. So this is not just a make Qualphone better by having everyone have mentors, and if they leave Qualphone, we're not interested in anymore. If we truly believe in having mentors for people, that relationship should transcend the fact they both work at Qualphone.
And that's been one of the things that I've seen time and again since I've been with Qualphone, is when we say our mission is to make each person's life better, it's not like there's a door at Qualphone. Once they leave Qualphone, we don't care about them anymore. And that's been something to me that has really been different than other companies. That, and the way you just spelled it out, is exactly the way I think of it. That, hey, we want to make your life better whether you are working for us or not. And I think that's what's powerful about our mission in my mind. And
We
Mike,
just had our summit in Mexico a few weeks ago, our annual company summit, and a bunch of the people that were in attendance used to work at Qualphone. They don't anymore, but we still have a relationship with them.
that's great. I have a question that I have on my sheet here that is, I'm supposed to ask Marisol this. I'm going to ask both of you this. And in fact, I'm going to start with Mike. So the question is, what is different about Qualphone CEO Mike Morrow versus Mike Morrow, the CEO at other companies? What's different about you now, Mike, as a CEO here at Qualphone?
So we have a mission. Everywhere I've ever been before, we have a mission, right? And generally, we have values and so on that talk about people. So if you look at our mission, right, which is be the best at what we do, that hasn't changed. Pretty much anywhere I've ever been, it's the same thing, right? It's a competitive world out there. And if you want to succeed, you're more likely to succeed if you're the best versus being the worst. The other part of the mission that says make each person's life better, some companies don't care about that. A lot of companies do. They talk about it, but it is deeply rooted in the core of what we do. It is not just a tagline. It's not something that we think sounds cool, that we hope our customers, like us more because we say those sort of things. The truth of the matter is it is our ultimate goal. Our goal of being the best is so we can have a strong, vibrant business that provides jobs. We're private, so we're not traded. We're not under the pressure of quarterly earnings and so on. We still want to be a good, strong, profitable company, but we want to do all that as a platform for making people's lives better. So the difference between Mike here and Mike everywhere else is that everywhere else, everywhere else always has, no matter what company it is, they have periodic challenges, and sometimes those are financial, right? So we're not going to quite get there this quarter. We need to do some things, and those things generally mean jettisoning things related to work life, right? To employees enjoying coming to work. It's cutting of benefits or canceling bonuses or laying off a whole bunch of people. We don't have that pressure. And, we have quarters just like everyone else, and we have targets just like everyone else. But we're not going to make those by sacrificing the happiness of our employees.
Thank you. Now, Marisol, I'm going to ask you that question. How is Qualphone CEO Mike Morrow different than Mike Morrow, CEO at other companies where you've worked with him?
I have so much I could say here.
Should I sign off before you do that?
Just to put some context behind this was before iPhones, before the first account. Let me put it this way. The first account I worked on with him was for a communication company that was beta testing DSL lines in Palo Alto. So just to put a reference of time, that's how long ago. This is before workforce management and reporting teams were part of our description. So I remember, again, I will say the thing about titles. He taught me this about titles. It was Mike Morrow. It was I don't even know what titles he had over the years. To me, it's always been in that realm of CEO. But I would say this: the older version of Mike. When people use the word intimidating now, I kind of chuckle.
When you say older, are you referencing my current age or a previous time?
Older version, previous time.
Okay. Just didn't want to make sure you weren't discriminating against older people.
No, never. As I'm getting older myself. No, the older version of you. Intimidation is being across the conference room seeing Mike Morrow every single day at 8 a.m. to report on your stats, your P&L, your KPIs, before they were even called KPIs, there were service levels, all those things. That was like, to me, that was, compared to him today, he's like a teddy bear. So, so anyone who thinks that he's intimidating now, I'm like, please, I could probably call like 10 people from the old days who would laugh at that. But, in a more serious note, I would say that, bringing it back to Qualphone and to the mission, and I mean no disrespect to any former employers that I've ever worked for, or even, the company that I helped start. But when I worked for BPO all these years, it's all a blur. Like I don't really remember. I can't sometimes put together what company I was working for. I can remember places, locations, what was going on, what the fire was, but it's all a blur until Qualphone. Qualphone's the first BPO where, obviously I still work for Mike and will work for him as long as I can, but it's the first time I've ever really stopped to take note of the company and be like, past Mike, I would still like to stay at Qualphone. And that's a first for me. And I'm not sure if that's a great thing to say on a podcast, but it's the truth. It really is the truth.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Mike, we're wrapping up here, but you mentioned earlier when you talked about us having a mission, being mission driven. How would you sum up how this idea of mentorship fits into our overall mission?
Yep. Okay. So first of all, I'd say we're beyond mission driven. We're mission obsessed. We get up in the morning. We think about it. We think about it when we're driving to work. We think about it all day long. We dream about it at night. It is who we are. And the whole mentorship is helping people be successful, accomplishing the responsibilities they have at work. They're going to be more successful if they have help from someone who's done it before. That's being the best part. And they're going to, who doesn't want to be successful, right? If people can walk home more days saying, I had a successful day today, aren't they happier? And being happy is part of having a better life. Aren't they happier than if they didn't have that? Or if, they're learning new things and having someone to talk to about not just today, but, next month and next year and 5 years from now. So the mentorship is helping people be successful at being the best, and it's helping them think about, plan, visualize, conceptualize where they're headed and how their life can continue to be better and better.
I'll just wrap it up with the thought about mentorship. I challenge the mission leaders in the company to look around, spot that person who you can identify the qualities in them that maybe they don't see for themselves, and look for a connection for someone that you connect with. The mentorship relationship is kind of two ways. And I think I'm an example of how invaluable a good mentor can be in one's life. And I would love as many people to be able to experience that, because it's something, it's not just it doesn't just affect you. It affects all the branches of your life. Everyone I'm able to help or support or serve because of where I am in life, because of my mentorship with Mike, that's a direct line to Mike and that mentorship relationship. Excuse me, I'm not getting emotional, I promise. So I challenge the mission leaders of Qualphone to keep your eyes out and look for that connection, because it really can lead us back to our mission of making people's lives better.
Great. Thank you. Mike, thank you. Marisol, thank you.
It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed this. It's giving me something to think about. I'm going to leave this podcast and think about being more of a mentor and less of an intimidator.
I have interviewed a lot of people in my podcasting hobby, semi-famous people, and I was never nervous. I was never nervous because I was behind a mic and it was a hobby, and I didn't have any skin in the game. Mm-hmm. And I was really just interested in who I was interviewing what they had to say. This was out of my comfort zone because he's my mentor. We don't have that relationship. It's not like we sit around over the years, discussing what we think of each other.
Right.
Our conversations have always been very efficient.
Right.
And that's the thing about him. One of the things he taught me is efficiency, how to run things. Our I don't want to say slogan, I'm not sure what it is, but the thing we have written in our email that we reference, a lot. To me, these are all things that he has instilled in me. Keep commitments at Qualphone, add value at Qualphone,
Right.
move fast at Qualphone.
Spend wisely. Yeah.
Spend wisely at Qualphone.
Yep.
These all tenets in the school of Tao of Mike Marrow. Mm-hmm. And you and I know he wasn't supposed to be our original guest, our first guest. We had placed him in the middle of the lineup originally when we were thinking about this podcast. And, we recorded this weeks ago, pre-coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And it just seemed natural for us to move him to the first podcast, because if there's anyone I would want as a CEO during this time, it's Mike Marrow.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of CEOs. I was married to a CEO. He is steady. I think that's the word you've used.
Yeah.
He is steady as a rock. And who I would want is exactly the person who's in charge right now. I think it's just another reason for us to be grateful.
I agree. It was a great chance to interview Mike. And of course, as you mentioned, we've already interviewed several other folks, and we'll have an opportunity to share those in coming weeks. But I really appreciated Mike's thoughts on mentorship. And to your point, during a time like this, his steadiness, his
leadership,
that's exactly what we need right now.
And make sure to check us out next month. We have Lyman Beatty from our mission department in episode 2 of Mission Qualfon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Qualfon. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Mission Qualfon.